Thank you for listening to the Damage Report podcast, the show covering the true threats facing our country and what you can actually do about them. You can support this free podcast by leaving us a review and giving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to be listening to it. Every review helps more people discover the show at no cost to you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a Friday show. I want to start off with breaking news. I'm hearing reports that everyone's clock is off by about 19 minutes. So take a moment, fix your clocks, because we're right on time, baby. I'm John Arola. Brett Erlich, how's it going on a Friday?
Honestly, you know what I should have done? I should have just been like, but you would still hear my loud, weird, poppy mouth.
I would have lost it. Anyway, look, everybody knows we were posting in YouTube and on Twitch, on Twitter. We had some sort of audio problem that makes no sense. Yeah. I don't understand it. I don't know if anyone understands it. It's the most frustrating type of tech problem.
It's I can blame it on the new Skype. Skype will kind of do things to you, and then everyone just needs to like restart their computers. You can Skype. Yeah. Like I freaked out yesterday because Indisputable had to start late due to a weird Skype problem we'd never had before. This was a different kind of weird Skype problem we've never had before. And then when I logged on to start the call yesterday for the main show, I was like, one of these icons looks weird. Skype did an update.
Yeah,
and they're too clever, and they also put like pastels in there. I hate it. Let's talk about it for the next hour.
How dare they? No, we only lost like a fifth of the show. We should talk more about this. Anyway, we got news. I could do my whole spiel. Hit the like button. I don't know why you would. You probably want to punish us, and I understand that. But anyway, we're gonna talk about a bunch of news. We might take breaks. I guess we're not doing linear, so I guess we don't need to. But I will still be responding to your comments, so please send them in. But not criticism. I can't take it today. But anyway, Brett, you want to talk about some news?
Yeah, let's do it. I got no time. Let's go.
Let's do it. I vaguely remember what we're talking about today now, so let's do that. I've got a new challenge for Joe Biden and the executive branch. I call it the do literally anything challenge. And it's very easy to beat. You just have to do literally anything as president. And there's a whole category of stuff that he's unfortunately not going to be able to beat this challenge with. And that would be anything legislative, because we as a country did the COVID aid bill like a month into his presidency or less. And then there was a hate crimes bill. And then that's it. That's it for months and months and months and months and months. And there was supposed to be a voting bill, but that's never going to happen because they're not going to get rid of the filibuster. And we have an infrastructure bill, maybe someday that will be passed. But my point here is, and we're gonna be giving a couple examples of things that he could be working on, is that if you cannot achieve much of anything legislatively because of Sinema or Manchin or Tester or the Republicans or the filibuster or whatever, then I'm really gonna need you to do something with the powers that you do have. And as president, I looked into it, and there are some things he can do, Brett. And so I think it would be nice to reassure us that, yeah, he's just as frustrated with the Senate as we are, but he's not gonna let that cripple his presidency. He would do something, and right now he very much isn't. Although in a minute, we're gonna go through a few of the things that he could do.
Yes, one very interesting place to visit on the internet that I discovered yesterday or 2 days ago when we were doing production for the Power Hour with Senator Nina Turner. We kind of talked about this a little bit in the growing chorus of people calling for the president to do literally anything. There's PolitiFact has a Biden promise tracker that you can go and track all of Biden's promises. So if you just Google Biden promise tracker, they have everyone set up. They give you a status on where it is, and you'll see a staggeringly low number of promises have been delivered on. And another place to look for that is like right now we're caught up on HR 3, like the third House resolution. We're on 3. We can't get that one. We're thinking about 4, trying to get 4. Can I get a 4th? 1 or 2 a year, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff about the Christian creation myth. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But one thing that does make sense is that when God rests, which is weird, he's all powerful and everything, he rests after creating everything. Biden's launching into it. He made like gophers and ficuses, and then he's like, I'm good for a year. I'm gonna take some time off. But anyway, let's get into a couple of things that he could do, that he has made promises on. So one is looking into what can be done with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is broken in a whole bunch of different ways. And not everyone thinks that he should do literally anything to change the Supreme Court, but in theory he could, and he's expressed interest in it. In fact, back in April, he began a commission to look into possible court expansion or other reforms. And it has been months and months and months, and we don't have the final draft report. We have like an interim report, and they say, as a legal matter, we conclude that Congress has broad power to structure the Supreme Court by expanding or contracting the number of justices. That's actually a spicy little addition there, the contracting. But anyway, the prudential question is more difficult, and commissioners are divided on whether court expansion would be wise. And here is what they say to that point. The commission laid out a number of factors to be considered, including ways it would impact the judicial system, how the political timing would affect the court's independence, and the example it would set for other countries that could use it to justify tampering with their own judicial systems. They say that it could undermine rather than enhance the Supreme Court's legitimacy and its role in the constitutional system. And there are significant reasons to be skeptical that expansion would serve democratic values. And coming out of that, it's not the final report, maybe they'll change it, but I feel like if it was like, we looked into it and it's just a great idea, there's no downsides, I feel like he still wouldn't do it. With this interim report, there ain't no way he's doing any reform to it. I mean, we wouldn't want to undermine its legitimacy, which is just so sterling right now. Everybody loves what it's doing, and clearly it's set up in a way that reflects what average people want. Thoughts, Brett?
This is a doctor's note. This is like one of those notes that lets you bring your dog on a plane, but it's not like a guide dog, right? Like I just need to get someone to write up an excuse for me, a very official looking excuse that they can hand me that I can pass on to whoever wants me to hand in my book report today so I don't have to go to school. Like that's what it is. And that's where we are actually. This isn't the only issue where we're like waiting on a memo write-up to see if we can deliver on something that folks really, really want. Now, I think the packing the Supreme Court is one of those things that like cries danger to me. I think abolishing the filibuster is like the wrong angle on stuff to take. I think those are the slippery slope arguments that like until the Democrats prove they can shore up all the other leaks in democracy, if they just change the filibuster rule and don't promise to then change voting rights laws on a federal level and be assured that they can get that through a Supreme Court, like the Democrats are just gonna set themselves up to get their butts whooped because Republicans still control so much of the voting apparatus in America disproportionate to themselves. So this is a different thing. Okay. But thematically talking about this, like Ilhan Omar just released a document and had like 18 people in Congress sign it saying, Biden, when it comes to student debt, we're still waiting, not just on your decision for student debt, but on a memo you promised you'd eventually write to explain whether you could do the student debt stuff that you promised.
Yeah, so don't you worry, we're gonna get into that. And look, I understand that what you said about the slippery slope. I don't necessarily share the same level of fear because
knowledge of the political system. Got it.
And that mostly knowledge of the political. I don't know, where am I? But I've seen how the Republicans function, what they want to achieve, and the fact that they've already carved out every path necessary to get done what they want when they're in the presidency. But anyway, I would say simply expanding the court and leaving everything else the same is not the only thing that you can do. A couple years back, John Oliver had a great episode of his show on reform of the Supreme Court, and he talked about one of the plans, which is that every president gets a certain number of appointments that cannot be unilaterally blocked if Mitch McConnell feels like it. You serve an 18-year term, so there is some friction to the court, but you don't just throw on a 31-year-old radical so that you can stop anything from happening for the next 40 years. That whole sort of thing. You don't have to have people wondering like, are they gonna retire? Oh God, are they gonna retire? There's some predictability. It isn't, like you serve 8 years and you get one justice, Trump comes in and he reshapes half the court. This makes a ton of sense. And it is not simply, we're gonna put more people on. It would influence every president in the future, Republican as well as Democratic. But as you say, you also brought up the student loan debt thing, because that is, to me, that's the slam dunk. He promised he would do it. There is widespread support for it. It is a massive crisis. Chuck Schumer is supportive of it, as well as Elizabeth Warren. He said he would look into it, and he definitely has the power. And when so little else is being done, it would be a sign that he actually cares. He gets the obligation he has to make good on some of his promises, and he's willing to do it. But instead, he's just waiting. Back in April, again, April was a big month for making promises. They said they would do this memo that you referenced. They said, Ron Klain said at the time that it would be released in a matter of weeks. I guess that's true if you consider 30 or 40 a matter of weeks. It's been 6 months since then. And so Representative Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as well as a number of other progressives in the House have pushed for the release of the memo that was supposed to be being done, a 6-month term paper on whether you could legally do this that they still haven't released. And they're pushing for that to happen. And that would be such an easy one, so popular. And so far, no, 6 months. He's off doing God knows what. He's getting boosters occasionally, and that's pretty much it. I don't see much else from him other than that.
Yeah, and I wish I could remember the total number, but there was an analysis of what this would do to the GDP, and it would add like $100 billion to the GDP if you canceled student debt. And then you have to ask yourself, like, why
$1.8 trillion in total student loan debt, which, as they point out in the letter, is almost exactly the amount that billionaires made back after the initial shock through the course of the pandemic.
Yeah. So, yes. It's very frustrating because why isn't he handing it out at all? Like it's done. You can't tell me it's not done. Just hand over your work, show me your work. And what it's probably gonna say is something that we all need to really understand as a central theme of American politics. There are plenty of things you can do, and frequently they like to give an excuse that it's outside their power. And frequently these things are ambiguous, and you either, if you want to do it, you either want to do it or you don't. If you do want to do it, then you are going to look at that ambiguity and use it to your advantage. And if you don't want to do it, you're going to look at that ambiguity and say something we've heard before when I say, like, the parliamentarian told me I couldn't. So all of these are not indicators of whether or not they can. They're indicators of whether or not they want to.
Yeah, and look, we have to move on, but other things he could work, like there's a lot of executive power over potentially internationalizing vaccine patents would be great, putting more funding into distributing it internationally. We had talk about pressuring on filibuster reform, because again, it doesn't have to be things that he signs a piece of paper and it's done. You could see him vigorously arguing for things that he's not currently right now. Pushing for mint the coin to avoid constant needless battles over the debt ceiling increase and all of that. So
I think they need to immediately shift the filibuster discussion to like, no, real filibuster. I want to hear it.
Yeah, hashtag force the buster. That's what I was pushing for yesterday. If you wanna, next week they're gonna bring up the voting rights bill and it's gonna be filibustered, and Chuck Schumer's gonna be like, oh, okay, fine, then we're fine. That's really unpopular what you're doing, but I'm gonna cover for you by just moving on. Don't
you change, and that requires changing the not the spirit of the rule, but like the rule itself. It is so ridiculous. It's like instead of having to like play the game and fight the fight, like have the Giants play the Dodgers. It's like them saying, well, we would have a game, but it would be too intense. And that's what cloture is. Cloture is a vote saying that we're gonna end debate. But they don't have to have that debate and then end it. They need to bring back the, Mr. Smith goes to Washington filibuster and have these guys show up and tell all of America for 16 hours, 30 hours, 50 hours, 2 weeks, why they don't want you to vote. And I want to hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear all your stupid excuses, because I got a feeling at a certain point you're gonna stop giving us your rehearsed commentary and start reading from the phone book.
Yeah, 100%. Let it be unpopular and have it actually hurt them. Okay, with that, we're gonna move on. Through the course of this, we are gonna read some comments and everything, but we lost a massive chunk of our show and we produced a lot of good content. So we're gonna really try to get through stuff quickly, but also still people are sending in very nice super chats. We will get to it soon, but I wanna jump into this next story. Tucker Carlson has thoughts on male paternity leave, and they're terrible in multiple ways. Take a look at this.
Pete Buttigieg has been on leave from his job since August after adopting a child. Paternity leave, they call it, trying to figure out how to breastfeed. No word on how that went. But now he's back in office as the transportation secretary, and he's deeply amused, he says, to see that dozens of container ships can't get into this country.
Look, there's at least two different categories of how this is awful. I'll add a third. He's purposefully mispronouncing his name. It's a thing that Tucker Carlson does. Tucker Carlson, of course, is supposed to be a different sort of conservative. You may not agree with him, but he is a free thinker. He tries to be fair and everything. No, he can't pronounce the names of national figures purposefully. He does it to insult them. But anyway, there you have, they call it paternity leave. Tucker Carlson is 50, I don't know. He has no idea what paternity leave is, or he would have you believe that, either to mock the idea that paternity leave might be necessary, or the idea that you would need paternity leave when you adopt. He's demonizing something here. My guess would be multiple things. But before we get into some of the bias and discrimination, the bigotry in that statement, he does know that paternity leave is a thing. He knows that male paternity leave is a thing, that paid paternity leave is a thing because he works for a corporation that does it. Fox News offers paternity leave to its employees. Todd Pirro announced earlier this year that he would take 6 weeks of paid paternity leave to spend with his daughter. Jesse Waters took a brief leave after the birth of his third child, saying, "Now I am pro-paternity. I used to mock people for taking paternity. I used to think it was a big ruse, but now, I wish I could take 6 weeks." Well, I mean, in theory he can, because it's allowed by Fox. Love the concept that it took until his third kid for him to realize it's a good thing. That's weird, but they totally have it. And again, like with the vaccine mandates, this is Tucker pretending not to understand something that is already the law of the land at Fox, but he wants to demonize it for one of multiple reasons. Brett, what do you think?
He does know better, or he's stupid. Imagine,
I think he's more bad than stupid.
He's evil.
I don't think he's that smart, but I think he's a terrible guy.
This is an evil, terrible thing to say. This is a homophobic thing to say. Or it's like a buffet of ways to interpret how stupid / evil Tucker Carlson is. The truth is, he's like, I know my audience. I want to say that these gay guys who have a kid are not as manly as me, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, who, if we want to speak in the language of toxic masculinity, is a little bish. Whenever he feels bad, he has the highest pitched laugh. He can't stand toe to toe. When he was confronted in person, he absolutely folded. He's like, and you know what? The biggest breastfeeder of them all is Tucker Carlson, who's been suckling at the Swanson Broth Teat, who is benefiting from the fact that his own father was a longtime television hack. Dickie Carlson, who, if you go watch the documentary, the lady in the whatever, about the car on,
yeah, that's a good documentary. The lady in it's a short name. It's like a 4-letter name.
The lady in the Dale.
The lady in the Dale. Yes, that was
the
good.
Lady in the Dale. His dad is the anti-trans, evil, bitter to this day D-bag from local Los Angeles news who kept misgendering someone who the entire rest of the industry was fine with in the 70s. And Tucker's still fighting that fight. And he suckles from the teat of Donald Trump finding out what works well with this audience, and he just caters to it. And that includes sad, sick homophobia that honestly, if he had the balls, he would be the same in front of his audience as he is in all those dinner parties he's so popular at, and he just avoids that. So I think Tucker Carlson either needs to act the way he does on those dinner parties on his show, where he is sucking up to all the elitists he poo-poos, or he needs to do vice versa and basically tell the audience that he goes to dinner parties with that he is a terrible homophobe, which, let's face it, he isn't. He's just a bad person who doesn't have the balls to be consistent in front of the audience as he is behind the camera.
But Brett, I ask you this question: why not both? He's definitely a bad person. Is he not a homophobe though? I mean, you probably recall earlier this year, a page from his college yearbook went viral. In it, he wrote that he was part of the Dan White Society. Dan White is the man who in 1978 murdered San Francisco Mayor George Moscone and City Supervisor Harvey Milk, the first openly gay elected politician in California. And that was just him saying, that guy killed a gay guy. I think that's funny, so I'm gonna put it in my yearbook. He can be both. He can be evil and homophobic. There's a lot of crossover in those communities, by the way.
Yeah, my point is like, and I don't know his heart, but I know that he is not saying homophobic stuff to like the fancy dinners that he's at in New York City.
Perhaps. I do want to throw in another thing though, because he's not the only person that now, like Tucker says a crazy random thing like men shouldn't take time off after they get a kid or whatever. And then all of a sudden a bunch of right wingers are like, oh, that's now a part of my value structure. I've always believed that. So one of the clones of Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, was talking about how you don't need it. There's no point. It's only the mom doing anything anyway. Why would you need it? And this is now a position of theirs, and it's for one of two reasons. And maybe Brett, you can let me know which you think it is. So there's the toxic masculinity thing. There is these guys who would swear that they're strong, live every moment of their life terrified that they will be seen to be weak. And so they have compiled in their mind this ever increasingly long list of things they can't like or be interested in or do or support because that will make them seem weak in the eyes of other weak men. That might be why you wouldn't want to be a dad that's like too focused on the kid and like helping out in an area that really should just be the mom. You don't want that, do you? But I also think there's another interpretation for all of these supposed right-wing populists. So right-wing populists are the people that are supposed to be advocating from a conservative direction for the actual economic concerns of the working class. They never, ever do that. They only feed them xenophobia, hatred, suspicion, and conspiracy theories to distract them from their real economic problems. But isn't it convenient to have a guy with an audience of millions telling his audience, you shouldn't take paid paternity leave? If you take it, it will make you seem weak and conveniently saves your employer some time, some money, some trouble. So this thing that is it seems designed to appeal to like these toxic masculine men really serves the purposes of their corporate overlords, their bosses, the CEOs who don't want to deal with people taking time off. I don't know if that's intentional, Brett, but it's a nice convenient little win for the supposed populists.
Matt Walsh just wants to be popular. His beard lines are too perfectly manicured for him to be a real man. I'm doing that. What? That's satirical. Like, bro, I love all these like Tennessee dudes or like, all the ones that go out there and are like, I'm a real man. But like, he's too vain to be a real man. And I say real man like, that's his definition. If I'm using his, this is not my definition of what a real man is. Mine seems to be more in line with yours, where it's like, listen, if you love your family, help out with it.
Yep.
Do you want to do well in your job? Do well in your job. Are you looking for an excuse not to contribute that's also convenient for your corporate overlords that'll pay you more as you're lying to people? Well, first of all, don't lie to people. Like that you're not a real man. Like that's my definition of a real man. But even by his definition of a real man, which is a flannel wearing outdoorsman with a wood paneled like study. First of all, the wood paneled study is an elitist interpretation of that. You're not wearing the flannel right, bud. Like that's like a Banana Republic flannel, and you go and have someone manicure your beard too perfectly. And then also like a real man, like if you're talking about your own family, like have some integrity. They have no integrity, and that's a huge problem with me. So like their definitions of masculinity are toxic, and even by those definitions, they fail themselves.
Sure, I will say that literally all of those things are perfectly fine if they're honest expressions of what you actually want, and not if you're chasing some sort of conservative idea of alphaness or whatever.
And Matt Walsh is a miserable human being. Like I guarantee you, he's a miserable, sad human being who goes and pretends he didn't read Ben Shapiro's tweets first and then tweets them himself and like changes it to make it more and he knows he has to flail, so he makes it. And just forget about Matt Walsh. He's a guy who like goes, is like he owns himself. He goes and like rents he knows that you get clicks by going and speaking at like school board meetings, so he rented a flat in Virginia to like so he could potentially get viral by calling into or going into a school board meeting. And even he attends school board meetings in Tennessee, but he homeschools his kids.
Yeah, he's desperate. He's desperate.
So sad.
Now, there is another 100% sad and weak. Put that in there, Chiron. Anyway, let's move on to another aspect of this. Tucker Carlson has received some pressure recently for the fact that he loves to demonize vaccine mandates, talking about those who push for vaccine mandates as tyrants, effectively. Joe Biden is trampling on your rights by requiring you to get vaccinated or get tested. They always leave that part off. And he doesn't like when you bring up the fact that that is the system that Fox has, actually a harsher version of that system. Take a look at when it's brought up. He's on a show and he's asked about this. Here is how he responds.
I have a question here about Fox News.
Yeah.
You said Fox News has no vaccine mandate. But according to Newsweek, the company requires unvaccinated employees to submit to daily COVID testing, which is stricter than Biden's mandate, which calls for weekly testing for businesses that employ more than 100 people. Is Fox News denying the civil liberties of its employees by being stricter than President Biden?
I don't know. I mean, you should probably ask Newsweek. It sounds like they got a pretty precise handle on what's happening.
Yeah, hey, if it's wrong, let me know. If I'm wrong,
yes, if I haven't, it's completely wrong, as I noted the other night.
Fair.
I'm not,
So what is the policy? Can you tell us the policy?
I'm not qualified to speak for the company on this because I don't run the company, and I'm not, I'm just an employee of the company. Right.
You weak little coward. I can't speak for the guy. We're not asking you to represent them. You're not speaking before the board. You're just explaining the policies. I'm just an employee at TYT. I don't determine what snacks we have, but if you ask me which, I can still tell you which. That's not representation, that's just acknowledging reality. And he won't do it, Brett. He hates this battle. That's why he lashed out earlier about it when Biden talked about the vaccine mandate. He really thought he'd scored a win. And I just wanna say, we just had that news cycle of supposedly like the Rogan Gupta thing where like Gupta had no answers. And that's the biggest news story in 48 hours. Where's this? Is this gonna be as big? Him fleeing in terror from a simple, honest question from this person on the show?
First of all, Gupta did have an answer. Don't get me started on that. They go on the show and they want to be happy and accepted on the show, and then they like get sad and they kind of agree. They don't want to disagree, but I don't think Gupta was so terrible in the 2.5 minute clip that I saw. For this,
fine, but what about this?
Tucker Carlson can tell you what the vaccine protocol is at Fox. There is no reason for him not to. He just doesn't want the secret to get out that it is stricter than Biden's mandate / protocol, right? And there is no vaccine mandate at private companies. There is a mandate for you to have to test if you're over a certain size, which Fox News is. Fox News, all their underwriters, their risk assessors, everybody in HR has gotten together and come up with a system so A, they don't get sued, and B, the people that are there don't get sick because this thing passes around. The next part of that interaction with Tucker is equally hilarious because Tucker says that why should we test people for their COVID status? We don't test people for their AIDS status. And that host that was questioning him says, well, you can't get AIDS by sneezing. And Tucker's like, well, I don't want to ask people and he just dodges. He has no good argument. And this is what happens. It's the same dynamic as like, it's very hard for people to become very successful comedians. And once they do, they get to a point where no matter what they say, you already think they're funny. The same, like, sure. Oh my God, I'll giggle before they start talking because I know this is a funny person. Yeah. And maybe someone funnier hasn't convinced you to like, this is the funny guy right now, so you don't laugh. And then they get lazy. This is what's happening with Tucker Carlson. You have someone who's gotten to the level where he no longer needs like even wily, like successful arguments, ones that got people to say, oh, that kind of relates to an argument that I believe in. No, he is at the point where he's comparing COVID to AIDS.
Yep. Yeah.
Something that's wildly contagious.
He's just a rando on Twitter. That's
for which there's a vaccine versus something that's not as contagious and definitely not airborne, for which there's no vaccine. But he is so lazy, and you can tell that he's so shocked and upset because guess which outlet he did start? The Daily Caller that he's on. And someone has the audacity to question him on these things. But even then, it's not a level playing field because that guy can't say, Tucker, what is the policy there? And he doesn't point out that, like, by not answering, you're admitting that you're being evil right now. You're admitting that you're willingly keeping the truth from us.
Yeah. Well, and why? One thing is because, look, he doesn't want to have an honest conversation about vaccine mandates, but this is also very clearly about his own cowardice. He works at a place that is doing a harsher version of what he criticizes. And they have on Fox spent a year and a half bringing on people who do not comply. That's the hashtag, do not comply, that they love. Here's a gym owner who opened before he was supposed to. Here's a person who refuses to wear a mask. Here's a person who won't get vaccinated. How great are they? He has an opportunity to put his actual career where his mouth is. If this is tyranny, he can talk about it. And if Fox fires him or he has to quit, that would be a demonstration of the sort of patriotism that they've been lauding all year. But he's never going to do this because this isn't about his values. This isn't about his positions. This is about money, accruing an audience that he desperately does not want to lose.
You know, like you say, people get really upset and the tension in the room rises because we're not allowed to have a difference of opinion.
I mean, if there's a word that you're not supposed to say, why are you saying it?
I don't know. Why do the guys in my class go, you know, and say, man, crazy? Why do they say that? And why is it because I'm a white guy, I can't say that? I can't say the N-word. Because that's the way they talk, right?
Wait. No, you didn't just say it.
Right?
But no, you didn't just say that.
Yeah, it's true though. The guys that show up for the history of class. Several football players.
So the male voice that you heard there was a teacher in Texas, a high school teacher named Norman Grunike, theater arts teacher, was having a conversation with the students about race and history, and made the point there that if someone says a word, he should be allowed to say it too. We bleep out a lot of words here. It's the one you're thinking of, by the way. And so his point is, I think he was saying young black men say this word, so I should have to. He's very impressed with himself because he's the first idiot to think of and express that point. He has now resigned, by the way, as you might imagine. Brett, we're gonna have a little bit more about the interaction there. My thing is, there's dumb things people say like this. I'm gonna express in public that I think I should be able to say the N-word because someone else did. This is the 100,000th time this has happened. And yet teachers in school are deciding today's the day that I do this. It's my turn, I'm saying this now. I don't get it.
I love when people ask rhetorical questions when there's an answer to it. Like there's an answer.
There is.
Like the N-word was used disparagingly to black people, okay? At least he's not like, it just means an ignorant person. Like that is also just disingenuous. But it was said disparagingly and it was reclaimed. And I feel like it's okay for white people after making life miserable for an entire race of people to just not use that word. If your Bible says you can't take the Lord's name in vain, even God said some stuff is off limits from a language perspective. Like he gave you 10 things to say and was like, don't do that. Okay. Like of 1/10 of his commandments were like explicitly. Everything else is other people saying stuff. This is God being like, I wrote it down. Take this memo. One of them is some words are off limits. This word can be off limits. I remember Brooke Thomas was like, why, like white people, not all white people, but like feel like they have to have everything. You don't gotta have this. And,
Brett, do you know?
And you're not just some rando. You're a teacher. Your job is to know the answers to questions like this, unless you're a theater arts teacher. In which case, just do the sonnets. Like, just do the scene.
Well, Brett would love you to just do the sonnets because he'd join in. But yeah, there's no teacher, there's no subject where this would be acceptable. But definitely not theater arts. This is outside of your bailiwick, man. This is not what you're supposed to be working on. And it's not original. It's not original. Like there's just, but maybe I'm expecting too much. Don't go up to a black person and try to feel their hair. Like little base level things that everyone should know, but there's full grown adults, 48-year-olds are learning this every day. Are like people being regularly chipped out of glaciers and unleashed on an unsuspecting world? I thought we were all conscious yesterday. I must have missed something. So he says, why don't we have a White History Month talking about what the Irish went through? Because we're white and it's a white privilege, right? That's what I'm saying. Look, you probably knew most of what you needed to know about this individual after the first thing, but after the second thing, I know everything that I need to know.
It's so funny.
You can't, like not only can you probably not be a teacher, you don't want to be a teacher. If at this point, this is what you're doing, you're going to a classroom and engaging in this, there is something about you that has some other goal that you're pursuing, and it ain't teaching kids.
And it's like, dude, this is your version of critical race theory, by the way. Like if you're angry that kids are getting indoctrinated because someone is trying to like put their own agenda of race education in the schools. Like that's what this guy just did. That is non-critical race theory.
It's uncritical, yeah.
Like uncritical, critically stupid race theory. That is what this guy is trying to foist upon these kids. The White History Month thing is hilarious because he doesn't make it about white people. He makes it about Irish people. You're telling me that in that school they don't teach about like the Irish potato famine. Like you're supposed to know about it, you'll forget about it, but like that stuff's in the curriculum. All kinds of stuff. Like it still says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free on the Statue of Liberty. And that applied to the tired, the poor, the huddled masses from Europe as well. Like, yeah, there's plenty of homages out there. You just get so frustrated when equality happens. They're like, oh, it's racism to be mean to whites. No. Pointing out racism is not hatred towards whites. Pointing out racism is just, if you do it whenever it's out there, then you're doing like the right thing. You are justified in doing that. You're just being honest. This guy, he wants to point out, and I'm with them. Like if someone discriminates against a white person for like no reason whatsoever, that's a bad thing. But the examples he gave just don't make any sense. So like, I'm waiting until you back it up with an actual argument. Until then, you've proven to me that you just want to be the victim. You want to play the victim. And more, the way that you think you're a victim is just wrong, baseless, and unfounded.
100%. Yeah. But you have a lot of media training people that there is nothing better than being a victim, and the true victim is, a white person. This should be our identity, and then go forth and minister to people. Final quick point on this. Parents said that they tried to bring this incident to the attention of school administrators, and this is where it gets even worse than one theater arts teacher. They said 2 assistant principals tried to minimize the complaint and justify the teacher's language, allegedly saying that cracker was just as offensive and black students should probably recognize they would face racist abuse as they got older. That's a good point. Someday you might you'll get hurt in a car accident, which is why teachers should be allowed to beat students. Someday something bad might happen to you, so we get to do it now. And the cracker thing again, it's the same thing I just said. 2 assistant principals woke up this day and decided, I'm the one that's gonna make that point. We've been through this, we don't need to go through this again. Anyway, let's turn to, man, it is really a day of schools behaving poorly. Let's jump into this next one. A top school administrator at the Carroll Independent School District in South Lake had a talk with teachers and said that if they're gonna have books about topics such as the Holocaust, they need to offer students access to a book that presents an opposing perspective on it. And this was actually recorded. Here's a bit of video that was released by NBC News.
Go through, just try to remember the concepts of 3979 and make sure that if you have a book on the Holocaust, that you have one that has opposing, that has other.
How do you oppose the Holocaust?
What? Believe me, that's come up.
So number the stars, which is you just take out one.
Okay, so the best, this actually makes me feel better. Not the whole story. The fact that the teachers freaked out, I'm just glad that there's people that would still freak out about a thing like this. So Brett, that administrator feels like we need to provide balance to education. Some books talk about the Holocaust and they use incendiary radical language like it was bad. We need representation of alternative sides.
The answer is, thank you for volunteering. Great point. All right, that teacher who just said it. Honestly, we're gonna broadcast this to local news. You go ahead and give your opposing views to the way we teach the Holocaust. The question is, so I heard number the stars at the end. It sounds like they were talking about this book, Number the Stars. It's like characterizes historical fiction about a family who escaped the Holocaust, right?
Okay.
Do you wanna have like a similar book from Nazi youth being like, hey, this is fun. Get them, number the swastikas, like that kind of a thing. And the truth is, like, if it's literature, I don't know, we can have a discussion, but like, here's my take on it. Is that person who's saying we need to give an opposing view is a Nazi? Like, I feel like there's a lot of things we still need to litigate. And okay, so that's the big picture. The big picture thing is like the Holocaust, I'm gonna go out on a limb like you did, the Holocaust is bad. But there's this instinct for people to be like their own, like Howard Zinn. Like they wanna be that brilliant revisionist historian who instead of shining a different light, a counterpoint to the like imperialism is great light, which like Howard Zinn did, and here's a people's history of the United States. They want to be that person who's like, actually, the Civil War had economic that's all I'm saying, economic overtones. And it's like, yeah, because slavery was free. Like,
yes,
that is not as smart as you think it is. And the reason that you think you need to make it smart is because you're wrong. And so with this, it's like, well, maybe we could talk about how the Holocaust came to be. Fine, I don't think you're gonna be honest about that. And honestly, you show me how our book is that we're using in history, where you should have those conversations as well, in history, how that's wrong. But they never do that. They just wanna say, maybe we should give an opposing view. And whether it's directed at a Holocaust curriculum or it's indirectly geared toward critical race theory, they're trying to, I guess this person probably also might be trying to be like, all right, if you want to show an opposite view of like our founding fathers, maybe we should also do an opposite view of the Holocaust. It's like, I'm willing to have those conversations only if you're willing to be serious about it. And 10 times out of 10, they're not.
No, 100%. No, and this is, look, this is the product of what we've been talking about for what feels like 10 years. I think it's been 6 months. It's the backlash against what whatever the dumbest person in a city thinks critical race theory is, that is now the worldview of every conservative in that area. They hate the idea that we would understand or question anything. And so they are trying to control that. Some states are literally banning teachers from using certain words. I'll reference my rant about cancel culture from yesterday. That is not cancel culture when you tell teachers they literally can't use 100 different words for some reason. And so they pass laws like this. Now, State Senator Brian Hughes, an East Texas Republican who wrote Senate Bill 3, which she is apparently misinterpreting, denied that the law requires teachers to provide opposing views on what he called matters of, quote, good and evil, or to get rid of books that offer only one perspective on the Holocaust, which seems like a defense of rationality. This is someone who is critiquing the administrator you saw, but I don't think that it is. This is one of many Republicans that wants to limit what your kids can learn, but has a few things he's carved out that like, well, it'll look really bad if we apply it to that. I mean, that's good and evil, but like slavery had like some benefits. Let's look into that. Not the Holocaust, because I don't want to be attacked as anti-Semitic, but like you should not learn about blockbusting or redlining and all that. This is, it's a disgusting morass effectively that we're in. And so why wouldn't it produce things like that administrator we showed you?
I get it. Final point is, I get the instinct as, God, only one. Okay, so I get the instinct as a person who wants to create a narrative for your country to wall off everything that's bad about it somewhere, so that now you can be good. That's fine if now you're good. They want to say, yes, slavery was bad, racism is bad, racism ended with slavery. They want to be able to do that, and they get to say slavery is bad. But that's fine if racism ended there, but it didn't. It went on in other ways. It like the end of the plague, it's just kind of hiding out in places, and it pops up and it goes here or there. It has its place in Jim Crow laws and redlining and all of that stuff. What's wrong with teaching about that? Especially if you want to say that those things are done. They want those things to be off limits because they want to basically create this master narrative of America being awesome at all times, except when it wasn't, and that wasn't America. Yeah, but the counter narrative we want to give is it's okay to point out where the legacy of that thing you also agree is bad, right? Because you're not going to say that it was good. You can say it's good, but I feel like people are going to go out against you. But like, you have to say it's bad, and you have to say that everything like it that's still around is bad. Yeah, but you don't want to have that conversation. It's because you want to wall it off in the past.
They don't want to have either, but they definitely don't want to have the one that would require them to actually do something. That's why they say, but we didn't do the slaveries. It is very much about them, and they are supporting things that might not be slavery, but that are still bad and racially discriminatory, and they don't want to stop. Okay, I'm gonna read a couple of quick comments, and then we're gonna roll into our last pre-garbage story, and we do have to get through this very fast. Wanted to let you know that coming up after the damage report today, there is Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. That always by itself exciting enough, but we have more. Trey Crowder is also gonna be joining Dr. Rashad Ritchie today.
So great, so
that
good.
Should be a lot of fun. Also, the power panel later on today. I'll be on the first hour leading it with Cenk Uygur and Bridget Todd. That's gonna be fun. Second hour will be Cenk Uygur, J.R. Jackson, and Abelina Sabrina, who did our Sabrina-tastic Monday this week, will be on the power panel. Also, Game Busters coming up later on Twitch. I'm gonna be joining for the first time with Brett and others. I think. Brett, did we have some secret we were revealing on the?
Yeah, you have to reveal. You reveal.
Oh, is that the secret?
Reveal
I was the
you.
secret guest.
Yes.
I thought there was.
And then wife, maybe we'll check to see if the gas is leaking. Maybe we'll check to see if the gas is on, wife.
Well, there's a fire in the background.
Yeah, I know.
It would be dangerous if the gas is leaking. Okay, with that, let's jump into this story right into this video.
Again, where you live? Hey, where you live? Where you live? You lucky you don't have a license plate. I'll follow you all the way where you. Yep, say less.
You're a bitch ass.
Yep.
Yeah, I know you are.
Okay.
That's why you're here, because you love white people so much.
Right. Anything else?
You want to be white, don't you?
Anything else? Anything else?
Keep following.
What's your name? The camera again. Say it again. One more time to the camera. Talk about your power. Say it one more time to the camera. Oh, the plot thickens. Bet.
Okay, that was very good commentary there with the plot thickening. So look, that's obviously horrifying. This individual who is walking down a street in Seattle, doing a Nazi salute, yelling white power, yelling racial slurs. This is a person who feels very, very comfortable being maximally racist. This did occur in Seattle. One of the reasons we like showing videos like this is to make sure that everyone knows that just because you're not in like the deep South or rural Texas or something does not mean that they've gotten past their problems with racism. It exists. That video was posted by Angélie Jean-Pierre, a model. The brother of Angélie is the individual who is following that man. And Brett, it's just like sometimes seeing it like this, I think that there's a silver lining that it is impossible to deny. There's a very big knee-jerk desire to pretend that racism is in our past. We were just talking about that with the teaching about slavery and everything, but no, it's 2021 and there's a guy walking around a fully public, fully well-lit area in Seattle doing Nazi salutes, and he doesn't worry about that at all. Feels very comfortable.
Yep, it's Seattle's the Pacific Northwest, and I thought that stuff was kind of like an Oregon situation. You have like the weird militia guys who swear they're not racist, but like it kind of sounds like they are. But to be walking around in the streets saying all that stuff it's so brazen that at least that guy thinks it's comical. Who's following him is just like, I can't believe it's happening. And that's where it's like, I feel like you have to document this kind of stuff when it happens in public. When someone is going to walk around saying these racist things and you put it online, like it has two effects. One is it just shines a light on it that this is happening everywhere, even on the streets of Seattle, which is a major metropolitan area. It also shows other racists like there's others like us. But I think that when you have that decision, I guess we just have to call it out and just keep it along with that narrative that like, listen, I want you to go back to being quietly racist. Like I want you to do that. Because that's, is that better or worse? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question and probably not one that's up to me. They're both obviously bad. And look, it's entirely possible that guy has done that his entire life. Like that's what he does. He walks around and does this. It's also possible that there has been a massive emboldening that was predicted over the past few years. That when you bring some of the most racist people in the country into positions of incredible political and media power, that is going to train their followers, their fans, their base, that it is cool to be this way. And it certainly feels that way. Now, we know that there's been a proliferation of high def cameras, everyone's got one. So if it has always been the same, we could just be seeing it more, but it certainly feels like there's more at the very least.
I mean, that's what happened. I would say it feels like there's more than we felt like there were, but there were always more than we felt like there were.
Yeah. 100%.
I do like to know where my Nazis are. Like as a person who's half his family's Jewish, like I like to know where they are. If they're in Seattle, good to know. I'm also reminded of this one dude recently in Buffalo who said he was a white supremacist and also said I'm a drone operator, and people found out that he was a drone operator who was a white supremacist, and he says he's being blackballed now. Like,
that's a shame.
Sorry, those are the consequences to your actions.
100%. And I will say to that school administrator, this is your counterpoint to teaching. They're apparently still out there. There are some people that like really thought the Nazis were cool. It seems like something we should deal with. Anyway, we're gonna get ready for our final thing. I'm gonna read just a couple of, actually, I wanna acknowledge the members. Quasita the Q Dragon, hopefully not that Q, has been a tier 2 member on YouTube for 6 months, says, John, your fault, I binge watched Squid Game the other day. called the twist, but still enjoyed the storytelling. I begrudgingly thank you for my sleep deprivation. Happy 6 months. Thank you for watching. I don't know which twist you mean, because I can think of several that were pretty good. But anyway, Mass Debater has been a tier 1 member for 7 months. Thank you for that. Says Dragon Squad is the best community on the net, bar none. I agree. Neil Stark, welcome to tier 1 membership. Thank you to all of our new members. Kyle Cushing has been a tier 1 member for 8 months. Says good morning, happy Friday, John and Brett. By the way, what game are you playing tonight on Game Busters?
Whichever one Jordan tells us to. I'm sure there's an email somewhere, but it's a spooky murder mystery situation. It's a spooky murder mystery situation today.
That's good for Halloween, good. Debbie Grove has been a tier 2 member for 9 months. Thank you, says love garbage. Well, you'll get some. Dandelion Fluff, welcome to tier 1 membership. Melanie Pierce, welcome to 2. Next Monday, we're gonna be doing our top 10 list for our tier 2 and tier 3 members. It's gonna be our top 10 red flags. We're gonna have a little fun with that meme, Francesca and I. And Brian Finesi has been a tier 3 member for 8 months, says, what is it with Texas teachers? This and one who thinks we need opposing views on the Holocaust to be taught. Oh, they're all over the place. Don't even worry about that. Okay, with that, we are running dangerously low on time. So it's the end of the week, and so it's time to take out the trash. Oh my God, has it been a garbagey week? Brett, how did you do it? How did you choose your garbage person, and who are you throwing in the can?
My garbage person of the week, as my wife crawls out of frame, is Madison Cawthorn. Oh. Madison Cawthorn is the representative from North Carolina who sounds like he's from the center of Wisconsin. He tweeted this, let's bring it up, about firearms. So his tweet was, it's long past time we update our small arms arsenal and ammunition in this country. Why are we using a slightly upgraded version of a Vietnam War era weapon? Let's make Halo look obsolete with our armaments. And to clear up any ambiguities, he followed up with this one, where he said, when I say armaments, I make no distinction. In military or civilian weapons, they should be the same. So, like, I wondered.
Wait, is Madison Cawthorn testing these out?
Yeah, that's him.
Ooh.
It's funny because I always had. So there's this character I used to do. My old boss had a Master Chief statue in his office because it was the games and interactive department. And the joke that we had was that he was the son of Master Chief, who's just like a total D-bag. Like, my dad's Master Chief, and he could shoot up your dad, and he like sears barbecue like beef with like a laser gun. And that's Madison Cawthorn. I was trying to decode this guy, like, he's definitely like Dave Rubin style, just parroting whatever someone tells him to do. But I feel like this was his. He's like, all right, I'll go parrot your like white nationalist NRA talking points, but I will add what a total loser D-bag I am to it by being like, we should have weapons, but not like any kind of weapon. We should have the ones from Halo. And then after we shoot each other on the street, we'll like teabag each other. Yeah. We'll like kneel on some teabag.
Yeah. See, you're 100% right. He's exactly that sort of person. But I also think there's a heavy dose of, man, they want to be good at social media. Like, they desperately want to be AOC. They desperately want to be able to connect, and that is his best attempt to do so. And he just can't do it. Yeah, it's and by the way, so it's lame, and what he views about the Second Amendment is insane. Nobody wants RPGs in the streets. You can't do self-defense with a howitzer. That's not how it works. Nobody actually wants that. But let's also, again, bear in mind what he's doing. It's the same thing as the Tucker Carlson thing we talked about with the paternity leave. It is something that appears to give the base what they want. Yeah, you should have whatever you want, but what is it gonna do? It would pump massive amounts of additional money into our military to design needlers and plasma rifles and things like that. So it seems like he's like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we like bust into Syria with swords and shotties? But what he's actually saying is, let's do like the XM program. They already did, and they're doing a massive redesign of infantry weapons and things like that. They've been doing it for literally years and spending tons of money on it. That's what he's actually supporting there. Yeah, a great garbage person.
Thank you. In our $7.25 trillion military budget, if we're going by 10-year chunks. Yeah, he wants 100%. To spend it 7.25 trillion at this current pace. It'll be more than that over 10 years. But yeah.
Anyway, I personally think we should be going in the COD direction. I think that our soldiers would be better in urban combat if they use the noob tube, personally.
I think we should go more in the League of Legends direction, where you have like a little teddy bear that turns into a giant teddy bear and kills people.
That would be great. No, you just cleave a city in half with the Infinity Edge. That's what you need. Anyway, okay, we're at least as cool as Madison Cawthorn. Okay, let's talk about mine. My garbage person of the week is going to be Sean Hannity, and I don't think it's been one for a while. Yeah, I'm gonna show you a video. It might seem immediately clear why he's my garbage person, but it's at least 5% deeper than that. Here's what he had to say when he found out that Bill Clinton had been admitted to a hospital for a non-COVID related infection.
The idea, why isn't everybody happy that whatever protocol he used in conjunction with his own doctor, that he's okay and healthy? How many times have I said, I want every American in Afghanistan home? I don't care what their politics are. If they're coming home to get me fired full time and work to get me fired full time, I still want them home. If every liberal that gets COVID wants to get well to get me fired because they don't like my opinions, I still want them to get well. You don't always see that from the left. You can look at comments at different times, and it's pretty brutal out there, especially people that are anonymous in their basement in their underwear.
Yeah, people in their basement in their underwear are literally the worst. So he's saying, don't wish death on Bill Clinton, which sounds like a good message. Okay, that's fine. And it is, I can see being frustrated that sometimes we wish ill on the other side. I think sometimes it's earned. But anyway, that's fine. You can have that point. But his other point that he attached to it was, libs don't care if conservatives die. And that would be nonsensical at any time. But after the last year and a half that we've had, can you tell why he's my garbage person? How much time have we spent on this show, on this network, as a country of libs, lefties, everyone desperately trying to stop conservatives from needlessly dying from COVID? Just trying to do it, showing them empathy, trying to persuade them, trying to be understanding, trying to drag them to not an early grave effectively. We've been doing that. He hasn't cared. Tucker Carlson hasn't cared. Laura Ingraham hasn't cared. Kilmeade, Ducey haven't cared. They don't give a damn that conservatives are needlessly dying because they value their own audience development more than the lives of tens of thousands of conservatives. That's why Fox News, if you bring up this one graphic, has undermined vaccines nearly every day for 6 solid months. They took 2 days off. Maybe Hunter Biden's laptop came up or something, so they had something else to talk about. But even before that, demonizing social distancing, demonizing masks, doing everything they can to advocate for COVID, we have just been trying to stop them from dying and never once gotten a shred of credit for that. We're told that we're tyrannical because we don't want conservatives to needlessly die in even greater numbers than they already have. But no, we're the callous ones. We only care about people like us. I'm vaccinated. Most of the people I know are vaccinated. There's a massive partisan gap in vaccination rates, and that should bother him. It should bother all of them, but it does not. He's my garbage person, Brett.
Just wait. Here's what's gonna happen. Here's what's gonna be happening though.
What?
This is inoculate people against like the coming argument. As more and more of the people in America are vaccinated, you're gonna see a shift in the percentage of hospitalizations of vaccinated versus unvaccinated people. But this was the time to evaluate whether the vaccine works. And we know at a time when it was holding steady, there's a lot of people, way more people who are unvaccinated got hospitalized for it. And if you see an uptick in the percentage of people who are hospitalized who are vaccinated, it's only because there's more people who are vaccinated.
I agree.
It's going to be right. It's so annoying. And that's the theme that
super fast. We have no time.
Yeah, sorry. That's just happening. Where like every argument they have, we've thought through and we're right about it. And we've said it, and they latch onto it until they can't avoid being proven wrong for it. But it's like, yes, I understand your argument. I don't want to wish ill on people, but and that's why I want them to get vaccinated.
I agree.
Period.
Well, those are our garbage people, but what did you all think? We polled you, and 31,000 of you went to the community tab of the Damage Report YouTube channel and voted. Coming in at number 5 this week with 9% of the vote is Josh Mandel for claiming Superman's bisexuality will destroy the US. Jesus. Coming in at number 3 and 4, tied at 13% of the vote, is Katie Couric for editing RBG's comments on Colin Kaepernick, as well as Senator Lindsey Graham for spreading misinformation about Brazilian refugees. That was one of my favorite videos the entire week. Number 2 at 18% is right-wing media for continuing to defend Christopher Columbus. Really, that came in at number 2? I never know how you all are gonna vote, because at number 1, 47% of the vote is Chuck Grassley, senator, for accepting Trump's endorsement after condemning him. They don't like the people that go back to suckling on that orange teat. Anyway, thank you everybody who voted. Much appreciated. Comes up every week. We look forward to see what you vote for next week. And Brett, thank you for joining us. Can't wait for Game Busters.
Me neither. Busting makes me feel good.
Jesus, thank you all. We've got a lot coming up today. Galaxy Brain's coming up later on today on Twitch, correct? And we got the main shows coming up. We got Game Busters. So stay tuned. There's a lot coming up. But until then, stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. I'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Damage Report podcast, the show covering the true threats facing our country and what you can actually do about them. You can support this free podcast by leaving us a review and giving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to be listening to it. Every review helps more people discover the show at no cost to you. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Aderola. I'll see you soon.